The Church of Scientology should lose its tax-free status. That's the view of Academy Award-winning documentary maker Alex Gibney, who explores the world of Scientology in his latest film. The director says a pattern of cruelty and, in the past, criminality should disqualify the Church of Scientology from being considered a charity. Alex Gibney's film, Going Clear, Scientology and the Prison of Belief, includes allegations that Nicole Kidman had her phone tapped by order of Scientology's leader, David Miscavige. Alex Gibney is in Australia as a guest of the Sydney Film Festival, where he has 3 films in the program. I caught up with him earlier. Alex Gibney, thanks for talking to us.
Delighted.
You've made a whole range of documentaries over the years, shining a light on abuse in the Catholic Church, on America's use of torture in the War on Terror. You even turned your eye to the corporate scandal of Enron. Why did you decide to shine a light on Scientology?
Well, you know, in a way, this story was chasing me for a number of years. A number of people had asked me to do it, and in a funny way, I thought it was maybe too fringe. But when I read Lawrence Wright's book, Going Clear, the idea of the prison of belief, which is part of the subtitle of the book, was what really got me. Because it seemed to me that that's about Scientology, the prison of belief. And in Scientology, it's really a prison. Sometimes people are locked up. But it's also broader than that. It's about the way that all of us can fall prey to a system of belief, whether political or religious, and lose our bearings.
So you had opportunities to make this documentary before, but you turned them down. Was there fear involved? Did you not want to take on this topic?
I think you'd have to be crazy not to go into a film about Scientology without being a little bit careful. I mean, they have a reputation that precedes them. You know, these are people who have gone after the IRS, America's tax agency. They've gone after the FBI. I mean, they can be ruthless.
HBO said that they put 160 lawyers across this film. Now, is that really true, or is that one of those kind of exaggerations you hear from Scientology about how many members they have?
That was a joke, a bit of hyperbole from Sheila Nevins, the head of the documentary unit of HBO. But I found it interesting because it is, as they say in the journalistic profession, a fact too good to check. So it was trumpeted on the headlines all over. But HBO is tremendously supportive and very robust in its legal defense of the film. We didn't have 160 lawyers, but we had a few very good ones.
And they haven't sued yet?
No, no suits yet. There have been a lot of cards and letters.
What kind of cards and letters?
Very many cards and letters from lawyers threatening to sue, but no lawsuits.
Some of the most confronting scenes in the film revolve around a place called The Hole. Tell us about The Hole.
The Hole is a place where at a certain point in time, the leader of the Church of Scientology, who's still the leader, David Miscavige, he decided to gather up all of his best and brightest, the top lieutenants of Scientology, into one place and to re-educate them. And it was a couple of double-wide trailers at the Gold Base, which is just outside of Los Angeles in California. It's since no more. But at the time, it was a place where they went and they were forced to kind of confess their sins over a period of time. And when I say a period of time, I don't mean a number of weeks. I mean, for some people, a number of years. And they lived in very rough conditions. You know, food was sometimes served as slop on the floor. It was, ants were crawling all over the place. And there was a lot of physical assaulting going on where people were actually told or encouraged to beat each other up if they were disloyal or bad.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
One night, Miscavige comes into the Hole with a boombox.
He said, I'm going to teach you all a lesson. We're all going to play musical chairs.
These people were fighting to stay in the hole.
Throwing people around, scratching, kicking.
They're tearing chairs apart. They're ripping clothing.
I mean, whatever it took.
So you see this scene where Bohemian Rhapsody is playing. They're playing a game of musical chairs, but all these senior Scientology executives are fighting to stay in. They're not trying to get out, they're fighting to stay in. Is this part of the reason why the FBI has never succeeded with prosecutions of Scientology in relation to allegations of forced labour, kidnapping, all forms of abuse? Because there is a form of consent here.
Yes, there is. And that's why this phrase, the prison of belief, is so powerful. I mean, when I was saying earlier that there was a kind of literal prison, that was the Hole. But while there were bars on the windows and a guard outside, really the door was open. And they could have walked out, and many said, and I asked them, you know, if the FBI had showed up, would you have said, thank God you're here? And to a person, they said, no. We would have said, no, we want to be here. We've been bad, and we deserve to be punished.
So the question is that informed consent? Should someone intervene when people are trapped in that prison of belief?
I think you get to a kind of record of cruelty in the Church of Scientology that goes beyond informed consent. And it's that pattern of cruelty and abuse, not only toward its own members, but toward its critics on the outside, that I think makes Scientology a proper target for investigation.
How pervasive is the culture of surveillance in Scientology, both inside the church and also outside on critics of the church?
Well, it's extreme on critics who are outside the church, particularly ex-members. The use of private investigators is rampant. And a number of the people in the film, who appeared in the film, have been subjected to rampant use of PIs, sometimes physical threats. And we see also in the film people, you know, 6, 7, 8 people showing up on a doorstep with GoPros on their heads, trying to harass them, to provoke them. This is I can't think of any other church that really does that.
Miscavige really wanted to get him back into being somebody that he could use to lure people into Scientology and increase his own status. And I was also involved in the legal team and actually hiring investigators to investigate Nicole.
Now, Marty Rathbun, who features prominently in your film and was second in charge in Scientology's hierarchy, in your film he says he helped organise putting Nicole Kidman under surveillance, getting her phone taps. Why did he do that?
They were concerned, the Church of Scientology, particularly David Miscavige, was concerned that Nicole Kidman was taking Tom Cruise away from the Church of Scientology. As we all know, here in Australia, you know, Nicole Kidman's father was a renowned psychologist here, and they were afraid. And so they dispatched Marty Rathbun to try to get Tom back into the church by kind of repurposing auditing, not as a way of letting Tom feel better, but to insinuate ideas into his head. As part of that, Tom began to be suspicious about Nicole Kidman. He went, by Marty's account, to Marty and said, you got to wiretap Nicole. And Marty laughed it off and went to David Miscavige and said, well, Tom wanted me. And Miscavige said, get it done. So according to Marty, he then empowered some people that the church works with to wiretap Nicole Kidman.
Have they spied on you?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
Any suspicions?
Look, you know, every once in a while, you go to cities on press tours. People show up with cameras. Sometimes funny people, you know, call. You know, Larry Wright got phone calls in the middle of the night. But I can't say I felt the heavy weight of their kind of surveillance. I know that the people in the film really have felt it pretty deeply. Look, they've paid a lot of money. They've spent a lot of money constructing these videotapes about me and my dad, who is deceased.
What do you think of those films?
They're ridiculous. I mean, they're absolutely ridiculous. I think on the face of them, I invite anybody to go see them. I think it's freedommag.org. By all means, check them out for yourself. They're absolutely ridiculous, and I think when people see them, they spot that ridiculousness, but I'm not sure they're really intended for you or me. I think they're really intended for the faithful that remain inside the church. It's a way of telling them, don't worry, we're fighting the good fight, and these people are awful.
Do you think an organisation that has been classified as a religion and spends millions of dollars on surveillance and attacking critics should get tax-free status?
No, I don't think they should have tax-free status. It's not about whether or not they're a religion. Whatever their cosmology is, that's up to them. It's their pattern of cruelty and, in the past, criminality, which I think should disqualify them. And frankly, this pattern of cruelty is what puts them at odds with very basic principles, in the United States at the very least, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Do you think there's any chance they could lose that tax-free status, the tax-free status that they won through basically bombarding the Internal Revenue Service with lawsuits, FOIs and
private investigators surveilling their staff.
That's right. It's quite something. I mean, most people would be terrified to go after the IRS. The IRS, can be brutal in terms of coming after you.
Well, they brought down Al Capone.
They did. And the Church of Scientology went after them hammer and tong. They infiltrated the offices. They performed all number of dirty tricks in trying to go after the Church of the Church of the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service. But yeah, I think there is a chance that they could lose that exemption, and it's happened before. There's a famous Supreme Court precedent called Bob Jones University, which Bob Jones University lost its tax-exempt status because the university had a prohibition against interracial dating, and that violated certain public principles.
Why are there no current-day Scientologists in your film? Can you make a fair and balanced film about Scientology without talking to somebody who's still inside and still believes it?
I think you can. We tried to talk to certain members of the Church of Scientology, and they declined to speak to us. So, I think the film is about ex-members, and people can judge it for what it is. And when we sought out the Church for comment, they declined. And then we also asked them for documents, and they didn't give them to us. So, the Church wants us to make their film. I made my film, which is about dissenters.
Alex Gibney, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much for talking to us.
Thank you. Pleasure.
And Lateline approached the Church of Scientology in Australia for an interview to respond to the film Going Clear. It declined. In fact, it's been over 5 years since the Church of Scientology put up a church member or executive to be interviewed on the Lateline program, despite numerous requests. The Church of Scientology did provide us with a statement that says, in part, Alex Gibney's film is bigoted propaganda built on falsehoods invented by admitted liars. But as I mentioned, it would not provide anyone on camera to test its claims. We will put that full statement on our website.